Ready? Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Durham Select Board meeting. We have a quorum this evening with Mr. Josh Klein Golden. Dismissed, not available for tonight's meeting. I'll stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let's see, any amendments to the agenda tonight? Jerry, do we need to put anything in a certain order for us to move forward tonight?
No, I don't
that
believe
you're
so,
aware of?
no.
Okay, yeah, I'm not, okay. Well, public comment? I don't, okay, we're good on public comment. And see, old business, proposed amendments to Part 3 of the Land Use Ordinance subsection 18-4B3, which I believe is in our packet.
So I think that the change is what we asked George to do last week on the second page of the packet, the underlined part, number 3, that says, would you like me to read it?
On number 3?
Yeah.
Select Board shall establish fees for all permits where permit fees have not been specified within this ordinance, but the town performs services required for its administration. Okay?
That was the catch-all that Josh was talking about, correct?
Establish fees for all permits.
More or less, if we've missed something, this gives the authority there to address it.
Right. And then there's only one other thing that I'd like to address about the fee.
Yeah, hang on, I'm just reading the sentence before we go on to that.
Okay.
So what shall establish fees for all permits. I'm thinking there's a comma needed in here somewhere, kind of a run-on sentence. So what shall establish for all permits with permit fees have not been specified within this. Is that reading funny to anyone else?
I think if you wanted to put a comma after ordinance before but, you could, but.
Yeah, I don't even think that
don't-
helps it.
But
Yeah, but
I don't think it really changes it.
it doesn't change it, but.
Legalese is often runs on.
I think it works for what you're trying to achieve. I think it spells it out pretty clearly. I don't
We're
think it's
gonna
very
go through
ambiguous.
the ordinances with commas in mind, we might be
No.
here
I'm
for
not
a few
qualified to
nights.
do that, I can tell you that right now. I'm not an English major.
Well, do you do the Oxford comma, or do you not do the Oxford
Do
comma?
whatever Google puts in there, man.
All right, yeah, I guess what it is, I don't like the but, and I would probably get rid of the second permit there. But I get why it's there. I'd put a different word in for but, and I can't think of what word I might put in there. In this ordinance, Select shall establish fees for all permits where fees have not been specified within this ordinance, period.
I'm guessing George, this isn't novel language, I'm guessing George probably grabbed it from standard ordinances you use elsewhere, so I'm comfortable with it.
Services. Where? Permit fees have not been specified within this ordinance. So so here, the select board shall establish fees for town-performed services where permit fees have not been specified within this ordinance, period. And get rid of the end of the last sentence, is what I'm proposing. Select board shall establish fees for town-performed services where permit fees have not been specified within this ordinance.
I think we should just go with George's language.
It reads funny.
Would the word "and" instead of "but" make you more comfortable?
No, I'm just looking to see if it accomplishes the same thing. Select board shall establish fees for all permits where permit fees have not been specified within this ordinance, but the town. Unfortunately, it reads funny.
I think changing the language, thinking that it's gonna accomplish the same thing, highlights that it's not a big deal if the language stays what it is now. That it's accomplishing the purpose.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same, I don't really see a lot of ambiguity
Yeah,
here.
I guess it really
I think
doesn't
it's-
matter.
For
Yeah.
standard comma versus whatever other comma.
The way I read this is, if it's not listed above and we provide a service, the select board can charge a fee for it.
Yeah,
And based off our conversation last time, the intent is to just capture if there's something missed, like Josh mentioned. This is after 99% of most legal ordinances.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, whatever, leave it.
Yeah.
Do, anybody have a motion?
Can I bring up the thing that I wanted to talk about this
Sure,
really quick?
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if we go back to the first page under number 2,
Yeah.
where it says all permit fees shall be established in a fee schedule adopted annually by the select board. When we put that on the warrant article to change it, the wording that we used was periodically. And so I would just like for all of the wording to match. That's what the town voters
All permit fees
approved the
shall be
last time. Instead of the word
established, yeah.
annually, it was listed on the warrant as periodically, and that's what we approved. And I would just like that language to be the same.
Are you saying it said periodically in the last warrant?
In the warrant question, it said periodically.
What's
On the-
What's it say?
It says,
Which number, 2?
okay, so right here, B2, and right here is the word annually. And the warrant question said, where am I?
the very bottom.
To see if the town will enact amendments to the land use ordinance as set forth in the document, and then list the document. To allow the select board to periodically set fees for permits and applications based on the analysis of actual costs and comparisons. And so now what we're doing is making that change to the ordinance.
Mhm.
And I would just like for that word, I would like for the wording in the change to read the same way the question does.
Okay.
That's last year's question?
Yes.
Could you just, I'm sorry, either I could read it, or if you could just repeat it one more time.
Yep, so to see if the town will vote to enact amendments to the land use ordinance as set forth in the document, and then the listing of the land use ordinance, to, in Article 18, which is what this is, to allow the select board to periodically set fees for permits and applications based on the analysis of actual costs and comparisons with similar towns. And then here, we have it listed as annually, and I would just like for that language to be the same, to again, go back and get rid of those places where we've said one thing and the language doesn't match.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it in lines with what was previously adopted, and should, that's the right way
Okay.
to go.
Periodically kind of seems like it gives a little bit more flexibility too. It might not need to be changed annually, it might need to be assessed
you might-
more than annually, you know?
Yeah, you might rope yourself in, depending on what's going on. Okay, change there.
I move we accept the 18 for 18.4 permit application submission requests with the edit of changing annually in sentence 1 of paragraph 2 to periodically.
Second that.
Okay, I got a motion, got a second. Do I have any other conversation, any other comments? Okay, all in favor in the usual manner? Okay, that motion carries 4-0. Okay. All right, Union Church status. This is always a so, you want me to start, Jerry?
Sure.
Yeah. So, we added this, I think we were asked a few weeks ago to add Union Church status to our agenda, just to follow up with our discussion on when we, I'll say, shut the church down, Union Church, for usage. I did ask for some clarification from Chief Tripp. He provided us with a letter indicating what's been done. Basically, I'll read the letter if you'd like. This department conducted a fire inspection on the Union Church dated August 10th through 11th of 2023. All deficiencies have been addressed and corrected. This would include numbering and the outside of the building, updating and testing the monitoring fire alarm system, storage concerns within 2 feet of the ceiling, excessive waste and storage on the floor, and extinguishers being brought up to date. And he continues on, as currently the town still owns this building as the fire chief in conjunction with the codes department. We recognize this occupancy is being used for storage. The town is allowing a third-party group to store and categorize its belongings. While allowing the membership meetings and business, town is allowing a third-party group to store and categorize its belongings while allowing for membership meetings and business. According to the current building code in use, if you invite the public into a building where you can fit more than 50 persons in the space, you are considered an assembly. Currently, the town is not inviting the public into the space. Upon change of ownership and/or change of use, other building code requirements could be required. So, that said, what we're asked is, the building is still closed, and does the board still deem the building closed based on the current state of affairs? We know the building is structurally sound. We had that structural analysis done. I know we have everybody moving to put it on the warrant in the coming weeks here for town meeting. So is there any change of use that the board would consider at this point, other than for storage and use for just meeting of the town employees as the committee? That's really the question on the table here. Yes, Heather?
So is the historical, when we say meetings?
Yeah.
Is the Historical Society allowed to have their meetings there?
Well, that's the thing, is they could have their meetings there now. They couldn't invite the public to them, so that poses a problem because they have to have a public meeting. So they'd have to have their meetings in one of the public areas that's accessible and have all the proper safety gear.
Is that the Historical District Commission or the Historical Society?
No, Historical District Commission.
Okay, so I'm asking about the Historical Society. They're the
This is-
ones that we're gonna transfer to. and
Right,
that-
they're eventually the ones we're gonna transfer to.
Right, and
When-
they're the ones that have all the stuff there,
That-
which is what I'm assuming they wanna be able to have their meetings in there.
Yeah, then what I guess we're getting at is that, yes, I don't think there's anything wrong with them having their meetings there.
As long as they're not inviting them.
As long as
to
they're
an
not
open-
inviting the
yeah.
public.
Okay.
I think that's probably, it's no different than the use they were using it for before. But the district commission would not be able to hold
Right.
their meetings there. They'd have to hold it in one of the public venues, so. We did close it officially as a board, so the question is we've been basically asked, can we open it back up for them to use as their little meeting place?
So, when I read this,
Yep.
my concern goes to like our liability, and so I'm not sure about this. I don't know, maybe Jerry or someone has insight. Is allowing a historic district committee to meet different than allowing an organization that is not tied to the town? So if we say it's open to the society, is that technically opening it to the public because they're members of a public society, just like any other society that's not a town affiliated organization? And that's where I'm just like, not that I expect anyone from the society to cause any issues, but if someone does get hurt or something like that, and then it comes back, like, well, you were letting members of the public go in there, because it's like, if we open it up to that society, could then, just for an example, the Masons, who are not a society, say, well, we want to use it, and that's where I'm just wondering where that line is.
I think we're confusing public with public assembly.
Well, so what it says here, and this, I don't know if this is a typo, it says where you can fit more than 50 persons,
Yeah.
not when you're inviting more than 50 persons. So in my mind, if it is a space that can accommodate 50 or more, just the act of opening it up to people makes it a public assembly. And that's how I'm reading it. It could be a typo, it could be wrong, I just want a little bit of clarification there.
I think that we closed the building because we weren't sure about the structural soundness, and now we are.
Well, we were also concerned about things like forms of egress,
Right.
that sort of stuff.
Yes, so what I would be comfortable with is, because I know that the Historical Society that is doing this work, which I think that they're trying to get done before town meeting, is typically 5 people. And so I would like, my one of the things that I would like to put out there is that I would like to be able to open it back up to them, to be able to do this, and if we did so with a caveat that, like, they're not hosting any events, they're not having more than their small amount of people that are there to do the work that needs to be done to catalog these things ahead of town meeting. I mean, I don't wanna see it get open so that people can go in there and tour it before town meeting gets held. Like, I don't think we should be in that kind of situation, but I think for them to be able to get in there to do their work, I'm on board with that.
Joe?
And I get that, I want that as well, but what I'm concerned about is what we want versus what we can or should do, because my concern is, seeing as it's a society that's not a body of the town, if we say, yeah, you're allowed to go in there, is that us technically opening it to the public, because we're opening it to a subset of the public?
Well,
And-
they are the occupants of the space.
Well, I'm just, yeah, I
So-
mean, that's where I'm trying to get some
Alright, so-
clarification, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
I personally, this is my opinion, and it's probably not necessarily all opinion either. This board doesn't really have the authority to keep them out of that building if they're not changing the use. If they're utilizing it for what the town set forth in the ordinance that they gave them the rights to use it, the only people that can prohibit them from now going in there is a safety or code officer, which is the fire chief. But this board, this is out of our hands. This has nothing to do with us. They have the right to use that building.
Yeah, that's where I'm just asking
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
clarification.
Well, we voted to close it
I don't even,
based on
we
Chief's
can't close
thing.
it, yeah, I know, but we ran into this in the past with condemning buildings. This board doesn't have that authority. The board has to listen to the fire chief, which was his recommendation, and therefore we agreed with him.
Yeah.
But once he writes this letter and says they're free to use it back to the use that it was,
Yeah.
it's really not our call.
Yeah, and I sat down with the fire chief the other day for about 20 minutes and talked about the letter to make sure I understood it well. And that's exactly the small group, the intention to let the small group in is fine from his aspect. He just does the gathering, that can't happen. So,
I don't think it was ever intended when the town gave that to be used as a gathering space,
Right.
or else
Which is a whole
we
nother
probably, right,
question
but
that we're
but
gonna
as far
get
as
to.
the tenant, because it's a tenant.
Right.
They have the use, there's nothing stopping them right now,
If-
and I don't think we legally can't do
Then
it
that's,
without asking
I
the
mean, that
town.
was my question, is it considered now public use? But if they're the tenant, and we're just saying,
they
doesn't
can-
even sound like we get to make this
They,
decision.
well, we can just say they can resume what they were doing, which is
Yeah, but
basically
it sounds like
having
we
their
were just saying, we
meetings.
might
The
not
only
even
people that can
have
kick
that.
them out is the town. The town, not the board, granted
Yeah.
them permission to utilize and be a tenant of this building.
I see, because it
It's,
was a town meeting. that
it's a
it was
town
granted.
meeting, so
Yeah.
for us to, for lack of better words, evict or prohibit their use outside of the fire chief's
Yeah.
recommendation and or safety officer,
well-
we don't have that authority, in my opinion.
Right, so really, what we're saying
Am I
is
wrong?
we,
No, you
yeah.
don't.
we-
Yeah, no, that-
so we
that
made-
answers the
so-
question that
so-
I had, yeah.
So we made a decision to close it based on a safety assessment of the building. I think we're at a point where we can say that we can safely open it back up based on all the data that's been presented to us and this final letter from the chief that it's up to the standard that the town would accept for its small use by that society on a regular basis moving forward without any gathering. They'd have to come to us for a gathering or no different than anybody else at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I would just say that the
Okay.
building is allowed to be used, is now allowed to be used for its intended use
Yep.
and for its intended occupant.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get into the semantics of
Yeah,
that's
of
fine.
anything of that nature.
Yeah, that's
It-
fine. I just wasn't, I
I
was
get
just
what
trying
you're
to
saying.
clarify.
Yeah, no, I
if
get it.
was
I asked
considered-
all the same
Yeah.
questions last week, and I was concerned that we were putting
Fine by me.
ourselves in a liable
Yeah.
situation.
We're not the body of expertise.
No,
the
we are.
the
Yeah, no.
chief and code
No,
officers.
I think we're.
So
probably-
since we took a vote to do that, do we need to take a vote to undo it?
Yeah, I think we just take a vote
Just
to
to put it
undo
on
it,
the
just to put
record?
it on the
Yeah?
record. Yep,
Okay.
yeah, so would somebody like to make a motion, or you want me to make a motion first?
Why don't you go
Right.
make a motion, because I'm not exactly sure how I want to
I
word
was just gonna
that.
I'll make a
Go ahead,
motion
go
just to allow the Historical Society, it's a Historical Society and, or is it just, who did the town grant? Was it just the Historical
Yes,
Society?
the Historical
To,
Society.
to allow the Historical Society to resume their previous operations, therefore granted by the town of Durham.
Okay, and I will second that. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Okay. That's a unanimous vote. Okay, so they can go back to cleaning up the place and organizing as they were doing before and having their meetings. And any other use, they'd have to come and see us about. Okay. Budget articles, voting on the 2024 budget articles. I'm sure everybody may have watched or seen, we have an update to the numbers here. The Budget Committee, I could run down them quick, or Jerry, did you have something prepped that you wanted to run down for us?
No, I just provided you with
Okay,
what the budget committee did yesterday, it's marked
Alright.
with BC, and then what you had previous. to
okay,
that.
yeah.
that's
So the Budget
comparison.
Committee voted to approve the Public Works for 205, which is the same number, $180,000 for fire department, $10,000 for admin and buildings, $160 for assessing, so they went up by $20,000. The $160 plus $60 is the $220 bid quote we got from the one bidder for doing assessing. I will note that assessing currently would not take place until 2027, but the Budget Committee did vote to put all that money aside for the assessing bid that we received on Monday, yesterday. Grants, they approved 22,293. They did discuss the Union Church again. They didn't give us this number before, but 9,543, so they matched the Select Board. Eureka Reserve, $50,000, which matches the Select Board. So that brought them to a grand total with that added value of basically $100,000 up 94,600.
It's essentially the same, if I'm reading it right, other than it's just an additional use of the fund balance of another 94,000.
That's correct.
No, they made some other changes as well,
In the operation.
on the operation.
The
budget.
operations side, they did, yeah.
But as far as the total,
For the capital,
yeah, but as far as the total property tax levy, the number's still coming out to
The
8,027,000.
the levy's the same, but they
Yeah.
increased transfer out of fund use up to 628,000, whereas we had it in the.
that's
fund
correct.
balance.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right,
No,
the
no,
94,600, they just
So-
added an additional 94,600 coming out of that fund
Yeah,
balance.
but they had some other changes they made in the,
operation budget as well.
And I
Go
do
ahead,
want-
Jerry.
So today, we noticed that there was a bid sent by email. for
A second bid?
A second bid.
Okay.
So I think Donna's gonna reach out and ask them to submit it through paper,
Formally, yep.
like they should.
Do we know what the cost of that was?
190.
190 instead of,
And I think at some point, you still have to bring in both companies to talk to them.
Right,
but
and
At
that's-
least you have a budget to go on.
right. So we have a budget number, the budget committee took
220.
220 versus, yeah. So, yeah, and I agree, I agree that those two companies, we should have them in to discuss, have us at least a presentation of what they're proposing to do.
Do you know can you tell us the amount of the second one?
Yeah, 190.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you say that? I was doing
I missed
something.
it too.
I apologize.
Yeah,
I missed
so
the
yeah,
first one, you missed the second.
so we had a second bidder that came
Yeah.
in for $190,000 versus 220 for the first bidder that came in a more formal manner, so.
And were they also 2027?
Yeah, the one that I opened today, Donna's got the paper ones, I haven't looked at them, but the one that I looked on email is gonna be delivered April of 2027.
Okay, so it's within the within the
Right,
same
same
year,
year,
basically
right.
the same year, 2027 for both of them. Doesn't mean we can't get them earlier, but it's, for planning purposes, that's when it would occur. If anybody were to, at this point, ask what the date was, it would be year 2027, that assessment would be done.
And is it 2027 because it would basically like put us in the queue in a wait list type situation?
Yep.
Yeah, they're busy,
Right.
they're really busy.
Yeah, you just
so-
can't get them.
Wow,
So
that's-
the only way you'd get in there would be if somebody fell out because something else happened.
Yeah.
Is more than likely the scenario you're looking at.
Did they say how long it takes them to actually
I
physically
haven't
do
had
it?
time to review
Yeah,
the
that-
whole thing.
So Dawn is looking at the proposals, we'll get the second proposal in front of her, she'll look at all that, and then we'll invite them into our meetings to, and Rich, I'd ask you, have we, for assessments, have we usually had them come in before?
We haven't done an
Brian.
assessment during my tenure.
No.
There is a bid policy, you don't have to accept the lowest bid and so
Right.
forth. So it is open to discussion.
Yeah. So that's kind of why we even felt, even with the single one, because before I knew about the second one, we bring even the single bidder in
You
to
don't-
find
there's-
out.
There's all kinds of things that you can, whether it's a local, there's all kinds of different things
Yeah,
that
that's-
based on that.
This is really quite a process.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
no, I realize
I
that,
would
yeah,
definitely
that's,
have them come in
Yeah,
just to
what,
talk to
4 to
them.
6 months to do
Yeah,
something?
maybe even longer, yeah.
so. Okay, so there were, go ahead, Joe, you had something?
No, I was just,
So we mentioned there was a couple other items,
oh yeah, no, so I was just saying that, yes, they increased grants to assessing to 160,
yeah,
but their number reflects changes made to, some of the things that we had adopted at the previous meeting.
Right.
So we had adopted all of Jerry's,
yeah,
recommendations based off of actuals and added $5,000 to the solid waste contract budget to bring that up to 380. So our total increase after adjustments was 33,875. They adjusted theirs to only be 20.
it was 28.
28,475.
Yeah.
So they decreased one of our numbers by 2,500, decreased another by 700, decreased another by 275, and then another by 5,000.
Jerry, can you refresh me on the assessing? What, have we done it, has the town put money in there twice for 120?
No,
Just the one for 60?
yes.
Okay.
There was a second time that they took 60 grand, but it just wasn't allocated correctly, right?
It was the way they, so they didn't,
Yeah,
they didn't raise it and they just transferred it out. So when it didn't get done, it lapses back.
elapsed
Yeah.
back into the general
Kind of a
fund.
Union Church scenario.
Yeah, originally that 60,000, I believe I believe Donna was gonna be able to do it.
It
It wasn't for a complete
Right,
re-eval.
it was a
It was like a
market.
market eval,
And
which
my-
was significantly less.
Yeah, and it was like $120,000.
My
or
understanding is
something
that they were
like
gonna
that.
do 60,000 3 times to get the 3 years in a row to get the money that they needed.
Yeah.
And then the second, this would have been year 3,
Yep.
but in year 1 or year 2, it's like the same thing with Union Church, transferred, didn't commit or whatever, and then went back to general.
My personal opinion is it's a little premature to put that, basically pay for the whole thing now, being that it's not getting done till
Well-
27.
That's what I was thinking, Rich, is that if we're talking about trying to level fund some of these improvements, I doubt, I mean, I haven't done this before, but I doubt that they require payment in full upfront. And so I'd be more inclined to,
We'd never go for that. You wouldn't sign off on
no,
that. Heather's not signing off on that.
I barely want to pay in full at the end, you know? So I think it would be, I mean, when we get to this discussion line, I think it would be better to look at just continued flat funding of that.
Yeah, you could amortize it out for the next 3 or 4 years rather
Yeah.
than funding it all right now.
Well, especially because if the policy changes to allow us to pay for things as they come up, you know, we will have enough money to get them started. And, you know, if they require a third up front or something like that, I just don't imagine they're gonna invoice us, you know, April 2nd, 2024 for this. And keep in mind, like, we're gonna have our town meeting, and then, so best case scenario, we get them into the very first meeting of the next select board to
Right.
start the process. They're not gonna need 220 grand that day.
No,
This
they'd
is
probably
gonna be
get paid
several
once
months
more.
before we even sign paper with them, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, I was envisioning something like whatever you have, and if, you know, the total was 220 or whatever, you would have it all
Mhm.
completed by, let's say if they're gonna do the evaluation 227, have it funded by 226.
Mhm.
Or however the denominations you wanna do it, but rather than basically funding the entire project right now for something being done and taxing for 227,
Yeah.
seems a little,
And this
over the top.
is more in line to me of what we're trying to do, trying to get away from. Saying, oh, this is an expense, we're gonna pay for it all, put all the money aside right now. This is saying, let's just, you know, put away a little bit
I mean,
until we get there. So I'm agreeing with you, but.
yeah, no, I mean, I could see it different ways, like, I could look at it like, hey, you know, but it's not gonna last forever, you know, you could put it in a CD and get a 3-year
Right.
CD at 4.5%
Well,
or something like
that was
that.
the other thing that was.
You could do
brought
something
up.
like that, and that might make sense.
Well,
I don't
even
know,
if
it
we
depends on the
move-
flavor. I would do something like that, but it just depends on.
Whether we transfer or not, the money's not spent, so you can still put it in.
Right, it's just
CD
whether or not
whatever.
you
We're
wanna
just allocating
allocate,
it.
it's
yeah.
just whether or not you wanna fund all of it this year
Yeah.
via the taxes. That's the only thing that I would.
And I think what they were looking at is that is to utilize some of the fund balance we have, to fund it now and not have that come up as an item that you possibly have to raise later versus, you know, but I mean, not a lot, of course, but
Yeah.
I think
The fund balance won't really typically change, whether you use it now and you don't use it now, it stays in fund
stays there
balance.
too, right.
So
Yeah,
it's
you
not
have
like
3.5 million in the fund balance, or you have 3.4
Exactly.
million and
Yeah.
100,000 in
Yeah.
this account.
No, I
so.
know, it is,
I think it's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other, a
It
little
is.
bit, other than,
other than having the numbers be the same on,
Right.
between the budget committee and the select board, if we just go with what their number is. I could be swayed either way.
I think it'd get changed, to be honest with you, if you leave it as is on the floor.
What's that?
I think it'll be changed on the floor if you leave it as is.
Well,
Well,
I
oh,
think-
just two separate numbers? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think it'll pass.
Yeah.
I think it'll pass, but I don't think it'll fly the way we have it.
I think that,
I think the way we have it, it would.
Well,
I
yeah,
think
Excuse me, the
funding
way
whole
it's,
thing,
right, I
yeah.
think funding the whole
think
thing
that.
right out of the
If
gate.
we went in with two numbers, it's gonna come down on the floor.
yeah.
No question about it.
I mean, I think that we're all trying to accomplish the same goal, just proposing doing it slightly differently. You know, they're trying to say, well, in 27, we're gonna pay for this anyways, let's just put all the money aside now. We're saying, let's break it up. In the sake of us trying to get to a level funding of these sorts of expenses, I think we just should break it up. And I think information we have, they don't have, was they
Right.
were budgeting for 220, it's 190, and I know that they're concerned about amounts and, you know.
Well, it could be 220.
It could be
Right.
220, it could be 190, they didn't have that information.
Jerry,
you
do
know.
you have input on what you'd like to see happen, either full fund or?
to me, it doesn't really matter to me. You're not breaking any rules or laws or.
Yeah, because you're not raising it.
Right.
That's the way it looks.
I know.
You're not raising it, and you're gonna
Right,
spend it
it's a
eventually.
transfer.
You know, if it's all on how you want the optics of it at town meeting. Do you wanna
I-
use that much money? It's just,
Yeah,
it's just,
I would bump our 60 up to maybe 100 is what I was thinking, and just to add a little bit more now that we know that we're in the 200 range, and at least, you know, we've got the 60 there, put 100, that's 160, you're almost there, and then regardless, depending on what bid we go with, based on the two numbers we have in front of us, you'd raise the rest later, but
I think, my opinion now that I just heard Jerry and just thinking about this out loud and everybody's discussion, I actually just fund it. It's not being
could do
raised.
that.
We're not taxing anybody. The money's already there. We're just moving it to a different bracket, so
Yeah.
it's not spent on something else. So it's not gonna be raised. We're not raising taxes over this. If we were raising taxes, I'd be like, whoa, that might stop the presses on the floor, but now that I think about it, that we're paying with this with our money, so we're just moving it
it's already
to a
been
different.
raised.
Yeah.
We're just moving it to a different bucket
Yeah.
into the interim, so we preserve it, so we
Yeah,
have it
I
for
get-
when that eval comes.
Yeah.
I get that, it's accomplishing the same thing, it just makes me kind of beg the question, and again, you can go either way with this, but it makes me beg the question, if we're gonna say let's fully fund this, why aren't we saying just move even more of the fund balance into public works reserve and admin reserve and
There's
fire
no
department
specific-
reserve?
it's not a
Well, if we
specific-
have that schedule of things that they want, so like, I'm
Yeah.
playing devil's advocate here,
My
somebody could
devil's
say,
advocate for that,
Yeah.
to answer only because I've seen this happen, like, I'll use the fire department as an.
yeah, and I get that it's more conceptual.
Right, you have like a 10-year apparatus
Yeah.
plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
That word's not used as much as it used to be, but it used to be
Mhm.
a very common word. Those things change, the schedules change. For example, one time we were in massive discussions and it was about a 50-50 split about replacing the ladder truck. Then it got a refurb, like 3 years later, that was the new. The chief's latest first responder truck, that wasn't on the schedule 3-4 years ago, and then, so things come up and those things.
Yeah, no, I get
Those
that.
things are fluid, so
I get that it's much
The
more
money's
fluid
there.
versus this being a fixed expense,
Yeah.
so really it's six of one, half dozen the other here. I just,
this we know we're gonna spend. I don't
Yeah.
think we don't have a choice.
yeah, well, that's,
We always have a choice if we wanna buy a truck.
I'm stressed about the fact that we're not gonna get it done until 2027, cause we're at what,
Well, that-
67 right
Well,
now?
could be
I know
down to
there's nothing
60
that-
now, she was
I know
talking.
there's nothing we can do about it, but like, by 2027, like, we'll be lucky if we're still at 50.
Yep, yep, probably so. Yeah,
Especially with the way the housing
The
market's
market's
going.
going,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, all we can do is have the staff try to get that done earlier once we approve this money and go with that.
Yeah,
mean-
maybe we'll get lucky and somebody doesn't approve it in their town budget
Right.
and we get bumped up in
And we
line.
get bumped up in line, that would be the only way.
That's the only thing I can think
Yeah,
of.
yep,
I mean, I think that
I
would
think
be-
that's
I think that that's a reason to fund it,
Yeah.
right? And also.
that, yeah.
Not
Right.
to, I don't like the term selling point, but I think that that's an educational point
Mhm.
at town meeting to communicate, is that the longer that we wait, not that we have a choice, right? But if we're in a position where we could go sooner because
Yeah.
someone else doesn't approve
the
their
money
budget.
will be there.
The money would be there.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good
then
point.
that allows people to get a higher homestead exemption
Yep.
than what we would be if we don't fund it in
Yep.
time.
No, but you raise a great point, well, like, what if they can do it in 2026 or,
Yeah.
you know, something like that, so that's a
Right.
really
Yeah.
good point.
yeah,
Yep.
makes sense.
I think that's the way that it needs to be communicated at town
And
meeting.
if
Yep.
we've got two quotes and this is budgeting for the greater of the two,
Okay.
if we end up going with the cheaper one, we've got.
Well, that might be
we've got
why
some
you
money
wanna
set
discuss
aside.
both of them, right? Maybe you say, hey, if you can get it done quicker, maybe that might determine which one you would
You
like
go
to
with,
take.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying is if we only have two quotes
Expedite.
and we're hoping to expedite the process, we'll want to budget for the higher of the two, so
Not
it's
gonna hurt.
there.
The town can always put the money back to wherever they wanna use it.
Right.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
it's better to have the 220 and go with the 190 than have 190 and decide we wanna go with the 220.
And one other, I think, that's advantageous to funding it all is, it's you can look at it as an initiative. You fund it all, it goes away next year, so when you're doing your budget next year, that falls off. So
Mm-hmm.
really all your funding is, depending if any more initiatives come up next year, if you
Yeah.
have none, all you'll be putting it away is public works, fire, and admin buildings.
That's a good point.
Which is
Yeah.
$395
Yeah,
total.
That's a good point.
Not-
Pull the Band-Aid
Not
off
616,
quick.
so you're cutting that capital down by half.
I'm good. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, as long as if we're not raising, it's hard
Right.
not to do it. We know the expense is coming, so you might as well put
but
it away.
everyone wants their homestead exemption, and
So-
we can't give it to them until we get this done, so.
So while we're here and
That's a
we've
good
had
point.
this lengthy discussion, do we wanna land on a number right now? And then, like, vote on this number that we wanna use here while we've just had this lengthy discussion about
Yeah,
this?
we can do that, or we can just,
What's your thought, Heather?
I'm ready to make a motion.
go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to, raise our assessing dollar amount to $160,000 to match the budget committee, which would give us $220,000 total in that assessing reserve.
I'll
Do I
second
hear a
that.
second? Joe seconds. Any further discussion on assessing? And we can get this over with. All in favor? Okay, motion carries 4-0. $160,000 to assessing, which matches the budget committee meeting, budget committee number. It makes the most amount of sense. Okay? Now, Joe, you mentioned a couple other changes there,
Yes, so they've
just by
said
line items.
so we had 5 changes that Jerry presented to us based off of actuals.
Yep.
That was line 27354, dues and subscriptions. We had budgeted 12,000, actuals came in at 14,166. And then Jerry had proposed last week 14,500, which we accepted, and the budget committee accepted that as well. So that's the same.
Right.
Line number, the second item that they voted on, security. We had budgeted 1,600, the actuals came in at 1,728. Jerry came back and said, let's go to 1,800, which we accepted. They voted that down, so even though they wanted to budget 1,600, even though the actuals were 1,700.
Is there a thought process that if
Out that process of giving the building away might not happen until, if our
No, that's
town meeting
true.
is not till
Right.
April,
Yeah,
it might
they
not
went
happen
back
till
and forth.
June or July. So they ended up voting it 7-1 down, but that just is, a slight change for them. So we currently have a different number than them. We're saying 1,800, they're saying 1,600. So we're talking $200 on a $11 million budget.
Can I interrupt you for a second? So, this particular one is the municipal building. So I'm on page 4 of 15. And this is one where it's gonna be its own article.
217362, is that what you're on?
I'm looking at it, that security line is in municipal buildings, right? And so now I'm on page 4 of 15, where the total article amount is 4 of 15 municipal buildings.
You looking
Right.
at the same?
Page 4 of
No,
15.
No,
Yep,
stop.
21.
I'm looking at page 415, that's not what's on my page 415.
No, Heather's saying that the total line,
For
for
municipal
municipal buildings
buildings,
is
we have a
two-
$200
No,
discrepancy.
yeah, no, I realize that,
Okay, so
I
what,
just didn't know what page you're on.
I'm on page 4 of 15,
Mhm.
either of our budget or the budget committee's budget, page 4 of 15. And it says municipal buildings.
Oh, there it is, right there.
Their number
Got it.
is 22,235, and
Yep.
our number is 22,435, which
Yep.
represents that $200 difference. Now,
Yep.
why I'm bringing this up right now is because that's gonna be a budget article, right?
Yep.
Municipal buildings.
Yep.
And so, I think what makes the most sense is for us to take a vote on what we wanna do with that total figure,
Yep,
if everybody is in agreement,
Yeah.
rather than go, right? This is where there's a difference,
yep,
and so I think
and just, yep,
we address it article by article, that's gonna get voted on.
yeah, I agree, because if you, the
So-
numbering convention is this, the budget line is 217362,
Right,
but that's all of, that 21 is line 21, and then that
Right.
next number is what makes up all of these.
right, but,
So
and
that's
then,
the only one in
Right.
this section, so I think it makes sense to do that.
right,
My thought process is, I'd rather budget based off of the actual. You know, I expect that the town will vote to give the Union Church away. We don't know when that will happen or how long. So if that cost falls off of us, I mean, if the vote goes on April 1st to give the town the budget, the Union Church away, what's the earliest that we're now not paying a security bill there? I mean, is June even reasonable, or is it more like July?
I think that'll be, I mean, first of all, it's just gonna be a quick claim deed.
Mhm.
And you can do that, there's no liens or anything on that building, and they can, it's gonna be when you guys want
Right.
to, as a board, sign that over.
And so then
it
the
can be pretty
question,
quick.
the security costs there, you know, do they drop the bill right away by X amount of dollars because of that, you know?
That
what I-
portion would revert over to them, they'll
Yeah.
probably get their own account.
Right, so what I'm getting at is I'd rather just budget the 1,800 for it. We're talking $200 here, but just my thought.
I like in the,
I like having the same numbers, but at the same time,
I think on this small of an article, my preference would be to have the same number. For $200, that, I completely agree with what
Yeah.
you're saying. And had they agreed with us and it was $200, then I would be like, great, all's well that ends well.
I mean, it seems silly on an
Right.
$11 million budget to have a vote on a $200 discrepancy.
Right. I
At
mean,
the town
I hear
meeting,
what you're
but-
saying, I just think this is one of those times where it's only $200 and it just makes
Yeah,
sense
I mean,
to
that's
match.
fine too, so.
that's typically what we've done in the past, you know, this format's great, but you know, in the past, a lot of times where you'll actually get all the articles written out, and then it'll be the budget committee and the select board's recommendations.
Mhm,
And before
yeah.
it goes to print, we can change it, and take a vote to change it.
Right.
And it's much easier to follow than, you don't, this has the potential, in my opinion, you can miss things where once it's laid out and the actual warrants are actually, for lack of better words, prescribed to the question at hand and the dollar amounts are in there.
Yeah, I
it's
get
much-
that.
It's much easier to make it, not even a decision, but
Yeah.
to catch everything. And, I mean, there's no rule that says we have to be in simpatico with the budget committee.
Yeah,
There's
I get
nothing-
that. So I'll make a motion that we, adjust general government line 21 to 22,235, which changes total general government to 689,991 in our budget.
Well, no, because there's
No.
a $200 discrepancy in the planning.
Oh,
code.
sorry.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
totally
so
is.
I'll vote that we,
Let's
let me
just do
scratch that.
is it okay, can I make a friendly amendment that we just stick to
I'll withdraw my
municipal
motion,
buildings? Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
And that, so let's just do municipal buildings, and then we can do planning and code, and then we'll come to our
Yeah,
total number.
okay.
Because each one of those things is its own article.
So the next one is 27.
so we're gonna do 22.
Is that how they're gonna do it?
Yes, administration is its own, municipal buildings is its own, assessing is its own, information technology is its own, planning and codes is its own, correct?
Yeah, and if you look, yes, it'll be laid out.
Yeah. 22, 62, right.
Just like this,
Page 4,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, so this is for,
so.
So I'd like to make a motion for,
sorry, just point of information here. So
Oops.
you're saying here on page 4, there's 4 different votes. Each one of these
I'm
is its
talking
own.
about when we go to the town, when we get the, when it
Yeah,
looks
that's-
like this,
Right, that's what I'm asking.
yeah.
So, sorry,
When
it's
it's
3
in-
because there's no culture and recreation, but are you saying the vote is on each one of these sections, general government, public safety, public
No,
works,
I'm
community service?
saying-
Or it's
I'm
just
saying the-
on,
The warrant article is going to read whatever the jargon is, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the administrative budget, $473,000, $656.
so
Then-
line
then the
20,
next-
line 21, line
Right,
23, line
they're all
26,
their
line
own
27
articles.
are all gonna be there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, just,
Correct?
yeah.
Okay. So, you wanna make a motion, or you want me to make it?
Well, so, then you're saying we would make a motion just to accept line 21?
Yep.
And then move through there. So, yeah, I'll move that we change municipal budget from 22,435 to 22,235 to match the budget committee recommendation.
Second that.
All right, I got a motion from Joe, got a second from Heather. to change
I
our,
disgruntledly, I make that a disgruntled position.
any further discussion?
That was my comment.
Okay, all in favor? All right, motion carries 4-0. Changing our select board number to 22,235 for line 21 of general government for municipal buildings. Okay? Next item is, was dues and subscription. They also had a, I believe, a $200 difference there.
It was a little bit more. We had budgeted 600 originally, and we brought that budget, oh yeah, sorry, it is 200.
200,
We
yeah.
brought it up to 1,500
Yeah.
to reflect the $1,280 actual. They brought it down to 1,300,
Closer to the actual.
closer to 1,280.
Yeah,
In the same spirit as my comment on the last one, I would make a motion to change the planning and code enforcement budget to match the budget committee's recommendation of $124,300.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Rich seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, motion carries. That number changes to $124,300, which changed our budget number to, I believe it was $1,300 to match the budget committees on that line item. Okay, next item was, health insurance, line 30, TAC 7055. Budget committee did not change that number.
Theirs matches ours.
Theirs
That's what you're
matches
saying,
ours.
okay.
Yep, there was zero change there. And then the last one was solid waste. Line item 427231 for solid waste and hauling. I believe we were at $375,000.
We were at 380,000.
I'm sorry, we were at 380. They've now proposed 375,000, which was a $5,000 difference, only because they wanted, again, to get closer to the actual of 361,300 that Jerry had posted to us. Joe?
I move we stay with our number of 380,000. So we can my motion is so we can discuss this.
Second for discussion.
All right, second for
So
discussion.
my thought process here is I listened to their meeting, and their point was that, we're under our current contracted price for the first 6 months of the year or something like that, and then it will increase starting halfway through the year. And so their thought process was, because if you do 5%, if we know that it's gonna be a 5% increase minimum every year, because the contract is 5% or the consumer price index, is that correct, Jerry?
Yeah, whichever's higher.
And so if you do 5% of 361, so it's gonna be 5%, 361, 304 times. If we do 5% on top of that 361, the number is $379,369.20. And so that's why last meeting I had proposed 380 and we accepted it. The budget committee's point was that the first half of the year won't see that increased price because of our current contract, and that won't kick into the next half of the year.
But I had already specifically asked Jerry that question if he had split the contract, and he had said yes. That you
I'm
had
telling you
done-
what the budget committee
Yeah,
said.
yeah, no, I'm just saying, I had asked that question
Mm-hmm.
of you, did you do the 6 months and 6 months?
Yeah, and it
And you
was,
said yes.
right.
And so then we were basing it off the 5% of that having
Mm-hmm.
already been done, so I am in agreement that we
And
should
then-
stick with our number, but.
The other thing that I was thinking of, which some members of the budget committee brought up as well, was this is an estimate off of a projection of tonnage. The tonnage could be higher, and we could end up paying more.
Yep.
My thought process is people are generally throwing out more things now. I don't know what the trend is for us, if our tonnage is increasing much annually, but we have more people living in town, so just to play it safe is where I put that came up with that 380, and I'm more comfortable with that number than trying to skim that off right here, so that's my reason for the motion. But you might all say, it's $5,000, why bother voting on it at the town meeting? It's just an argument, so. I just wanted to make the motion for discussion purposes, so.
I mean, I think it's the same problem, as you're gonna walk in there, and of course, they're gonna take the lower number. It's gonna be what it is regardless of, you know, of what number we put out there. You know, tonnage is tonnage, and
Yeah.
Yeah, but the tonnage varies, and we know the price is gonna increase, so I understand that they might take the lower number, or the town might take the lower number, but I still think my thought process is our responsibility is to try to create a budget that reflects the number, and so at least giving them the presentation saying, we think that this number better reflects what the cost is gonna be, and the community can say, well, we don't care, but if we both go with the lower number, and then it's higher, I don't know what the feedback would be like, well, why didn't you budget for that
I don't think
more
either,
appropriately?
you know, it's an estimate based on what we have for raw numbers. Either number is correct. It really doesn't
Or
matter.
either
Or-
number
or
is incorrect,
Is
really.
incorrect. It doesn't, right.
Yeah, you're throwing a dart,
It's
basically.
completely just
Right.
like throwing a spitball against the
It's,
wall.
it's an estimate, I understand that.
And so it's like, I would say go in with the same number and call it a day, and the number's gonna come out whatever it comes out to be. And the town's gonna have to pay it, and if we're a little under, then we're gonna have to raise a little more money next year. If we're a little over, well, we're good. You know, if we estimate under, I should say, right? If we estimate above, then, good. Heather?
We are, on this warrant, we're asking for money to cover an overspent article for,
Fire.
okay, so if, I'm just saying for discussion purpose, if we wanted to present it that way, that this is all the logic behind our number and why it's higher. And here's an example of where the lower number is what went to the town. And now we're back before you again, asking to raise the money to cover that overspent article. And so if we're budgeting ahead of time, we don't have to come back necessarily to ask for the money to cover it. I think that that's a point that could be made to justify what we're trying to do. I don't care. I'm just saying, if,
I just don't think that anybody wants to spend 2 hours on the floor arguing over $5,000.
Well, I think
Have you been to
there's-
the last meeting?
And they will.
We have.
And they will if
Are
we
you
put the
comfortable
two
with the lower
numbers
number?
out there. It just makes no sense. The number's irrelevant.
Yeah, when
Well, I don't
I
think
did,
the number's irrelevant. We can say, oh, 20,000, if we overspend, we overspend.
What I'm getting at is I don't think it's worth pitting the budget committee against the select board over $5,000. It really, for this particular
Yeah, if it was
item.
stamps, so be it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, just. it
If you were-
doesn't-
if you
so
were
when
not
I
comfortable with the lower
when I
number.
did the math, I did the 6 month and 6 month, and I
Yeah.
came to 372 using the same tonnage in 23. So I bumped it to 375.
Do
Yeah.
you know if
I
our
mean,
tonnage
we're-
increased from 22 to 23?
It's actually, during COVID, the tonnages went way up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now they're coming back down,
Right.
so it's
So-
hard.
Right, so it's a guessing game,
It is a
which I
guessing
understand,
game.
and
Are
I'm
you-
guessing it's going to be $380,000. And so we can have a disagreement on that.
No, I
We
don't-
all have to pick a number. We could say, oh, let's do 300, and if we overspend, and we ask for it next year. We could say, let's do $500,000 so we don't overspend. I get that. It's all an estimate. That's what budgets on variable costs are. I'm just advocating for $380,000 and giving the reasons why. And so,
I can't recall, on the trash, how much are we raising versus how much is coming out of? Is it all raise?
well,
Well, it's
not
all
really,
kind of,
because we're
Exactly.
transferring to we're not,
Right.
I mean, yes, we're raising, but,
so some of the money
See
that
how
we're
it gets sticky
transferring.
when you
Right.
Right, and so that's where I'm taking, is a part of how it's being paid for. I just think that 380 is a better estimate of what the cost is gonna be, and I think we have the
Probably is.
responsibility
It probably
to
is.
come
It
up with
probably
a better
is.
estimate, you know?
I
If
think-
people wanna, I know it seems silly, cause it's $5,000 on an $11 million budget, but I'm just thinking that this is a better number, to utilize.
I don't disagree. but-
I don't disagree. The other component to it that one would argue is that the town is not strapped for cash. So if it was an issue,
We can just pay
you
it.
Well,
guys.
we could pay it,
you
but
guys
wouldn't
can
we-
authorize that.
Yeah,
You don't even
right,
need a town
right,
meeting.
it's right.
But
it's-
wouldn't we have to, just point of clarification, or wouldn't we next year have to say, we overspent on this budget line, and we have to have that vote? Even if we have the cash flow,
Oh, yeah.
we still have to come back and say.
You would still inform the town, but you would still pay, you could still pay $5,000 without having, going to another town meeting.
Right.
Right, I get that, we can make the payment, but then at the next meeting, we do have to come up
You
and
have to
say,
disclose it. They're
we
gonna see it.
overspent
you're-
by X amount.
Yeah, you'll have to ask them for that, just like Chief's
Right.
overspent article is like 3,000.
Right.
So
Right,
you
we
gotta-
didn't, we paid the bill, but we still have
You
to
can pay the
go.
bill. You can pay the bill.
Yeah, we
The
can pay
town's
the
gonna-
I'm not worried about paying the bill.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get us to a good number that is a realistic estimate, and I just think that the 380 is a better number than the 375. I mean, we've already gone, we can go through a nickel and dime and take $100 off everything, and just
listen,
say,
if
we'll
if
get
everybody
lucky.
feels comfortable, $5,000 is not even a rounding error in a $11 million budget, so as far as.
Which I get, but
So, I
we
mean-
just talked about $200.
No, I know, so I mean, I have
Twice.
no problem, just so everybody's clear, making it 380, because we either spend it or we don't. I have,
I'm
it's,
fine either way.
I think you're servicing the people either way. I think they know
It's a
that it's,
budget number.
I think they know that it's kind of like a commodity
Yeah.
number that's
Hey,
constantly
maybe we'll set
moving.
it higher, prove us wrong, don't throw anything out.
I mean, it could, I feel
The
like,
challenge, the
Yeah.
trash challenge.
Yeah.
well, this is, I wanna have a bigger conversation about trash, but tonight's not the
No,
night.
tonight's not the night. Okay, all
So
in
I made a
favor-
motion, no,
Oh,
I
I made a
didn't.
motion.
What'd you
he
make
made a
oh,
motion, you
my
I
seconded.
seconded it,
All
yep.
right,
Yeah.
all
To
in
keep it
favor,
$380.
$380,000? Okay,
All
motion
right.
carries. That was easy. Hopefully the town floor thinks it's as easy.
If not, it'll give him one thing to
I
argue
wouldn't
about.
argue it too much on the town floor, let them throw a number out and just go with it.
They do, based on last year, they do argue a lot less when the numbers and the.
Yeah,
the
budget
same,
they're,
committee-
yeah.
they're the same or
Yeah.
close.
I mean, but what I get at is it's probably, again,
I
not
think
the
that
hill to die on.
The easiest thing to do here is
Not
say,
trash.
this is where we
Yeah.
came up with this number, this is where they came up with their number,
I-
make your choice.
The one thing the town has been pretty steadfast on is trash.
Yeah.
Like,
Two
they
years
want
ago, we
trash
got rid
service.
of bulky waste day, and then this year it's like, no, we
All
want
right.
bulky waste day.
Right.
So, we're staying with
You know, it is a little nice for
380.
the lower of the two numbers, though.
Budget Committee's going with 375. So that's the only place I believe that we're different at this part, at this point?
We added 100,000, and then we took out 400 from our budget, so we just made it a total net change of $99,600.
We have to add to the.
Yeah, so we
take out
added
fund balance.
100,000 to match the budget committee on the assessing. We agreed with them on the two instances of decreasing our budget by $200. So that's an increase of 100,000, a decrease of 400, but then we kept our original 380. So that should be the only three changes there. Add 100,000, subtract 400.
Okay, so what does that do with our use of fund balance?
That would bring
What-
our
what
fund
line?
balance.
What line you on?
Page 1,
Yeah.
and it's not, it's the 533.
The 533,
Yeah.
875?
So we're adding 100, subtracting 4, so it should be
So
633.
we are adding $99,600 to our additional use of fund balance, which brings it to.
Oh, right. 533,
brings it to
875 plus 99.6.
633,475.
You should've just let me say what I was gonna say, cause I was saying it
I thought you said
before.
533.
No, I was doing I
That's
was
the math.
saying it,
It's part of the math.
633, 475.
Oh, yeah.
But it's better to do it on a
Oh,
calculator.
I always do that. I always mix up a couple numbers. there, too.
633, 475
Yes.
is what we would propose to transfer from the
That
general
makes
fund.
sense, because that's $5,000 more than what the
Right.
budget committee has
Yeah.
reflected in the solid waste.
Go team.
Perfect.
I'll probably get voted down.
Okay.
Someone's gonna say, hey, charge us $5,000 more for trash and throwing more away this year.
628, yep, that adds up, okay?
Yeah, Alan raised some good points, like when you go to those barrels. it's
What's
really
that?
interesting.
That's a whole nother,
Yeah.
you're gonna dodge
So-
that one, Rich.
I
gonna
think
use
one
the
of the
rest of
things
the
that we
board.
need to discuss and establish is that, when we're talking about the capital reserves, we began a conversation about how this was going to look on the warrant. I think, well, I don't really wanna have this conversation, anyways, that this all has to be listed separately, like this is its own question, Public Works for 205,000.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, they are, they're
Okay.
not grouped
There
together.
there was some we hadn't established that yet. We started that conversation, but it didn't get finished.
Yeah, and the budget committee did vote for the final number
Yeah.
last night, just in case we decided to combine it together, but that's kind of OBE at this point, because we just changed our final numbers.
Right.
So they have a different, we'll just have to, so we're gonna have two.
No, these aren't tied to the same thing that we just did it to. These are separate.
Yeah, no,
That it's-
I
they're
get that.
close, but
Yeah,
it's-
no, sorry,
Okay.
I'm talking about the other stuff, okay.
The only one in the operation that'll be different will be solid waste.
Will be solid waste, right,
Yeah.
that'll be the only one.
But you
But-
really do have to write articles so you can
Yes.
let the residents know
Yes,
where.
yeah,
this
all
is
these
going.
need articles,
Absolutely.
yep, yep.
Okay. So I think the way that we voted before, how we went administration this amount,
Yeah.
municipal buildings this amount, I think that we need to do that.
We need to do that for the capital
these.
reserves, yep, I
Yeah,
agree, now
okay.
that we have all the numbers laid
We were
out.
just
And that's what
talking
the
about-
budget committee said last night too, they'd like to see those as
Yes.
individual.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
some
Sorry,
of them, they voted for that, but some of them felt the other way, but they voted for it to be,
Individual, they
Yeah.
voted on the individual articles
Which
as
just means-
what they would be
which means Chief
individual.
and Calvin will have to get up and speak extra on each, because it's gonna be asked on each one of those, so.
No, hopefully not, I mean, it's just, I think we have a good enough explanation on why we're doing it this way.
So
I
for,
agree.
just for the administrative part of it, would you like me to just run down through each
Sure,
one and
go
do
right
the
ahead.
motion for the, okay, so I'd like to make a motion under the 2024 capital reserve account request that, the budget, no, the public works, account is 200, how do you want me to say this?
You'll work it out.
You were doing well until you said, how do you
You're
want me to
doing
say
good.
this?
The, select board recommendation would be $205,000.
Have a
Second.
4 seconds, any further discussion, all in favor? Okay, Public Works, $205,000 for selectmen's budget, okay?
I'd like to, what? I motion Joe.
I was the second.
Sorry, Jess.
I'd like to make a motion for the fire department capital reserve, select board recommendation to be $180,000.
Second.
Okay, I got Heather motion, Joe's second, all in favor? That's unanimous, motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion for the admin / buildings capital reserve account, select board recommendation to be $10,000.
Second.
Joe seconds, any discussion, all in favor? Motion carries.
Anyone else want to get on this motion, Megan?
We did assessing already.
Yeah.
The assessing, I'll make a motion that we,
Evidently somebody does.
what's that?
Nothing, keep going, buddy.
No, go ahead. I'll make a motion that we, select board budget for grants at $2,293.
Second.
Joe seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion that we, the select board raises or utilizes $9,543 for the Union Church.
Second.
I got a motion, I got a second. Any discussion? All
I
in
got a little
favor?
discussion.
What's that?
I got a little discussion. How
Go
are
ahead.
we wording that?
That's a good question.
That's why I say, so I was
So-
thinking about this last night, because with your discussion on it being, it's like, it feels a little like we're putting the cart before the horse, but at the same time, we kinda got to, so we word it right. And so if it wants to be a gift, and I think that the way this is doing it is it's moving it into their reserve account, which currently has 21,000, and then we're gonna have to go through the work of somehow donating that reserve account to them, correct? As a gift?
Well, the way it's described is the only way we can give this money out of that particular account is if it is gonna be used for public use.
So what
Right.
you're saying is we would have to transfer money out of the reserve account.
We have to
Yeah.
transfer this money back into the general fund in order to give it to them.
That's correct.
Because there's no argument that can be made that this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
for
yeah.
public use.
I see what you're saying. And so this would be, we would have to essentially have somewhere vote to raise 9,000, raise or appropriate or whatever, $9,543. And at some point vote to move 21,000 and
No.
change from the reserve account back
No,
into general funds.
Raise this to put it in with the Union Church account, and then a separate article to move the
Yeah, that's what I was saying,
$31,000
yeah.
You could do that
over,
way.
and then a third article to donate.
I think that question has to be before we donate the building though.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah,
So we need to put the money in the account.
yeah.
Which is what this
We need to vote to give
accomplishes.
the money
Right.
to them
Yeah,
and vote to give them the building.
yeah.
And there, we can do something in there where it's
Mm.
contingent. If
There's
you don't
really
vote to give them the
4.
building, they don't get the money. But,
4 articles, 90.
but either way, I think that this is the right place to raise the money.
Okay, so 95.
No,
40.
it is.
Yeah,
This is
it
the right
is.
place to
It's
raise
the
the
right
money.
place to raise the
And
money.
we're
It's
gonna
not
have
the
to
right
have a
place to
difference.
give the money.
Right,
We're-
exactly.
No, this is the right place to raise it, because we're gonna raise it, put it in that reserve
that
account.
account.
And then separate warrants are
Yeah.
gonna move it to where it needs to be, because I agree
That-
with your
that-
assessment.
It's the right place to raise it as long as the question is
Right.
before the
And y-
The
question.
order is
Right,
important.
the order is very, very
So we
important.
can transfer the money and then this goes in after, so
Right.
we'll once we get that drawn out, we'll have to.
a cramp.
It happens.
Yeah. No, I think the order is important there,
Yeah.
but for tonight,
So,
I think
Jerry,
this
that
is
might be
well.
one of those things like I think, correct me if I'm offline here, but I think the board's intent is
No, it's
we
okay.
wanna give $9,000 to give up to that $31,000. We recognize the public use. What's the best way, possibly consulting with the town attorney, that we should execute this on the town warrant based on the dilemma at hand, whether we give the building to them versus because of that public factor of the money.
now that you know, you have the numbers, and we're gonna
Yeah.
vote on the number here, then we can craft
Can I
that.
just, while you're thinking, can I say something really quickly? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
I think that by doing this and doing it to the account so that the account is at the 31,000, right? And then if for whatever reason, the town doesn't vote to give the building, we have $31,000 in
Right.
that account
That's
to be
correct.
able to
Right.
use towards repairs
correct.
because
That
we
is
still own the
exactly
building.
right.
Correct.
And so
Win,
I
lose, or
think-
draw, we need to have $31,000 in that.
We need to have 31,
Right.
it needs to be before the question of giving in the building.
Yeah.
Right.
But it needs to all kind of coincide and flow in the right manner legally, that's the issue here.
What you're
that
saying,
may
is we need
some
to get
help.
this 31, we
Right.
need to vote to give them the building, and we need to vote to move this
Afterwards.
money out of a reserve account, and then vote to give them a donation.
Yes.
That's the way
And
I
it
see it.
That's
sounds
right,
silly,
yeah.
but that's the way
Yeah.
I
I think that's
it
the
needs
only
to
way it
happen.
can
That's
be
the only
done.
way
I
it can be
agree.
done.
And it has to be done in that order.
Just to
Yes.
pass the straight face test, because we can't pass that test by saying this money is being used for public.
But that order that I just vocalized
that's right.
operates under the assumption that they're willing to accept the building without the money, because if we give
And-
them the
and
building and then
we-
the town does not
we-
vote to move the money.
We
And
know, they
yeah,
already
Yeah,
said,
again,
they're
which
already
which we
in.
do know, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm just vocalizing.
Yeah, but in the
Yeah.
same token, I mean, I don't think it'll come to that, but you could vote to give them the building, and then the town later says, no, we're not giving the money.
Right.
And then,
Right.
when the town meeting's over, they might say, well, we don't want your building. And we keep
Right.
the building, we still need the money. So
Right, we're
it's,
voting, yeah.
it's,
Yeah, it's a
Right, right,
risk.
right.
It's
There's
a
a risk, yeah.
But at the end of the day, this ends up with the money, the right amount in an account that
yeah, the
either
key is
we
to
can
get the money,
use
the
or
order,
deal with, yeah.
ask from a legal perspective the best way to word it, because I honestly don't know. I just know that we, on this one, as far as the monies go, not the church itself, but as far as the monies go, we need to make sure that our ducks are in order on that and
Yeah.
do it the right way.
So let me ask you a couple, so where is the 9,000 coming from? The general fund?
General fund,
balance,
yep.
yeah.
Okay.
So they're not raising it. We're not asking for more money directly from the town this budget period. We're gonna
This-
transfer it from the general fund.
This is essentially reallocating the money that we raised last year.
Right.
So I'm just thinking out loud, so we couldn't ask to just donate the 31,000 from the general fund?
Well, Rich,
You
Could.
still,
You could, right?
You
So once
could.
they have that,
Right, then you could
Yeah.
ask to move this if you
Just-
have to ask,
I don't think you do.
I think you could just move it over.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
don't
So if we
think-
get
Yeah,
the
you
building away,
you
we
can
can
do
just
that.
move.
There's other ways to skin this cat.
That's
So
why I would
Right.
just ask
I
that.
understand
That
what
would
you're
be-
saying.
Now you're down to two questions.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but that's gonna get complicated, because if we do that right now, what we are saying is that we're gonna have to change this 9,500 number to 31,000. And we're gonna say, we're gonna raise 31,000 to give as a donation. And that's gonna be different than what the budget committee.
Well, but you already got 21, so
Yeah.
you're just basically putting it back into the general
Right, because
fund.
and I could be wrong, what I'm understanding you to say is, if we can just give them the money out of the general fund, they get the building, and now we have a reserve account for a building we don't own, and so we just take that and move it in the general fund, which is
Well, we
fewer.
have to, wait a minute, pause, that's a reserve account, and we have to vote to move it out of the reserve account.
I don't think you do, because you didn't have to vote at town meeting to put shingles on the roof, and you took.
we were
No,
paying
no,
for
but
that
we
out
would
of
be
the
clo- but the
Yeah.
account would no longer be needed, right? The reserve,
Right.
and that
We'll
money
get
would
rid
be
of it.
sitting in there. And
And-
so the only way to get that money out of there is
I
to,
think-
is to vote to move it out of there.
You wouldn't be able to move it.
I think Heather might be right there, because the reason the money is in there is because people voted to put 21,000 in the reserve account expressly for that purpose. I don't know if we can
It's
just
why
say.
I
Ask
was
the
saying,
attorney.
if-
I'll
if-
have
Yeah, I was
to
gonna
ask the
say, yeah,
attorney.
yeah.
Remember
But-
when I was
but-
saying the thing about the Eureka Restoration Fund and the whatever, and the answer was that we had to vote to move that money out of that allocated account?
Right,
This,
'cause-
this is the same thing.
but the entity doesn't exist anymore. Eureka Center is an entity that still exists.
Right, but this, with the telecommunications budget, it's the same thing. We have to vote to transfer money out of that account, because we've already put the money in there. We voted to put the money in there. We voted to put the $21,000 in this account.
I get that, but what if you got rid of the telecommunications account? If there was no telecommunications account, you wouldn't necessarily need a vote to put your money back in order.
Every time that we've asked the question before, the answer's been that we have to vote to
No, I
move the
agree with
money
you,
out
but
of
I don't
there.
think it's because we got rid of an entity like the telecommunications or
But
the-
like,
or
take
the
for example,
thing.
the old home days and the old, you know, like when we had those, all those
Yeah.
little accounts where we voted to put money into those accounts. When we wanted to combine all of that and close those accounts, it was a warrant article that read,
Right, but I think
transfer
that
and
warrant,
close.
didn't that warrant article change the power of the board though?
I don't think so. No, this was like a,
Because it
anyways.
basically collapsed a lot of these little miscellaneous things and put everything into a.
Into the general fund.
Into the general, right.
Right, which is what we would essentially be doing with this, because we didn't have old home days anymore,
Right.
and we didn't do whatever these
I
other
think we're
things
on,
were.
I think we're saying the same thing, like this
Yeah.
money, I think automatically, once that entity doesn't exist, would have to go back to the general fund.
Right.
But we have to
Yeah.
vote to do
But
it.
Jerry's point is that would be, even if we did have to vote, it'd be fewer votes than what we just proposed. 'Cause we have
So-
4 votes here, but my only concern here is that now we're adding in,
It's technically a
Language now.
$31,000 gift.
well, that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
that now we're adding in language to say we're going to transfer $31,000 from the fund balance to gift to the, like, it'd fall under community services and donations. We'd be adding $31,000 there to gift to that organization.
Yeah, it's sticky.
And what I'm saying is, I get that it does the same thing, but the budget committee hasn't put that in there. So then they're gonna now have to meet to say, oh, we need to comment on them doing that. It is an easier way to solve it, but now they're gonna have to meet, they're gonna have to do the same thing, have the same conversation.
Yeah, but I think with this, we're just trying to take the $9,200 here, $9,500, and moving that into the larger bucket. What we do for an article after that, in regards to the donation, we need all that money, you still want all that money in the one place.
Because
even
if
if-
we
even
don't give the
if-
building,
Right.
right, it would be in there
You
for us
still
to
need it,
use.
and
So I do
just in,
think this has to be
it's
the
just
vehicle.
it's still the just in case scenario, right? We'll have that money aside, and then we're gonna go, whether the lawyer comes back and says, take it out of the general fund directly, and then just have this roll in, or something different. It won't matter, and we don't have to go back to the budget committee.
So-
And it's, the mechanics of how to get the 31,000, I think, is what we're more discussing than this 95,
This vote
43.
gets us to 31,000.
Right, I think we just need to get to $31,000, and then the next article can maneuver that money however we want to.
So the 90,
5.
the 95,000 that we're gonna ask,
9,500.
31 whole, why don't we
Yeah.
just ask for that? Put it into that same restoration account
Well-
and just leave it there, and then when the, like we said, when they
Well, if
do
you-
repairs, we'll pay it out of that
Yes.
account.
Because it's not our building, and
Not
that
our
would be
building.
using money for something that's not.
What,
Yeah.
what Rich is getting to is that he's not entirely sure based off of what the lawyer said.
Yeah.
That would count as a public use, so if
Yeah.
we're trying to pay, if we're letting them do the repairs and we're paying for it out of that account,
Yeah,
if we can't pass the straight face test that it's for public use, we technically can't cut those checks for
allocate the
him.
money, right.
And so this would, what Rich's point, which I agree with, is that like, we need to figure out a way to give this as a gift, because then you don't have to pass that
I think it
threshold.
just has to be a charitable donation.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's
But
it.
just getting to the wording, that's why I would just say,
I'll
Jack,
talk
how
to
do you,
Jack,
how do you
yeah.
massage this?
Right.
Because we know we can't
Directly give it.
directly give it
Yeah.
through this particular fund, because it's not necessarily, we're making a charitable donation to the
All
sport.
we can do as the two boards is to fund that up to the $31,000 level, recommend that.
Which is what our motion is right
And then,
here.
and which is
I'd
what
just
the,
leave it as is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, work it out with the lawyer, and
Yeah.
then maybe get back to us.
I
and then the
will.
articles.
Next meeting, I'll have an
Yeah.
answer for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I'd like to call a question.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a question on the table here, a motion on the table to, for $9,543 for the select board number for the Union Church to raise that. Do I have a, and I had a second from Joe. All in favor? Okay, motion carries, 9,543.
Was it raised or removed over?
I'm
This
sorry,
is transferred.
transferred, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
transferred
Well,
from the
we have,
general
we're not
fund.
doing the wording for the
We're
article
not-
Yeah,
yet,
I
but
was just
essentially
gonna
this
say-
is all that.
It's tough to say transfer because the amount, yeah, that's a different day.
Well, I don't think it is a different day, I think it's today, but let's get
Yeah.
through the numbers and then
Okay.
we'll
Yeah.
worry about the source.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
Yeah, but if the motion says to raise, you're putting that in the minutes, to
Right.
raise,
Did it say, did we say?
To
what did
budget,
we
I
I'd
say?
didn't
say
write
to
it down.
budget $50,000
To
for
budget.
the,
Utilize.
I said
Utilize
utilize.
utilize, that's
I
good.
said
Utilize
utilize
is fine, I'm sorry.
9,500.
Utilize.
He changed it to raise, I think you
I
said utilize.
said raise, sorry,
Thank you for the
sorry.
notes.
Yeah, 9,500.
Utilize, but I'm on
Yeah.
board with that, I'm on board with that.
Utilize gives us a little wiggle room.
It's
So what have I
utilized.
said for every other? I said recommendation, the select board recommendation.
You were fast, so I didn't catch.
She said utilize.
No, I said recommend, the select board recommendation,
Okay.
so that we could figure out the semantics of the wording.
Mhm.
Is that fine? Are people comfortable with that?
Yeah.
so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I
I'd like to,
move,
okay, you go.
we utilize $50,000 to add to the capital Eureka Reserve account.
I have a second?
Second.
Any other seconds? Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. $50,000 for the Eureka Reserve, which matches the budget committee numbers.
Yeah.
Can I
Okay.
ask a quick question, just a point of order really quickly?
Yep,
So, Jerry, are we gonna do that tonight? Are we gonna draft articles
No,
tonight?
no, I'll do
You're
that.
gonna do that and
And
then.
give you a
bring-
draft,
Okay, perfect,
right.
okay.
Hopefully you'll
okay.
have them next meeting to
Okay.
review.
What I
Yep.
was gonna say about that was that, I don't know how this is gonna, I know in the past we've said raise and appropriate or whatever. The thing that is confusing me a little bit
Mhm.
is that since, I mean, we are increasing spending by, but then we're offsetting all of that from the, all of our budgeted expenses from the fund balance. So technically, we're not raising anything this year, we're just purely transferring from the fund balance.
So it would say transfer and appropriate?
Well, no, you're raising.
Well, we're raising the expense number, but then it's all being paid for out of the fund balance, hence the mill rate staying.
We only have, correct me if I'm wrong, like
Where's last year's?
600.
Can I see last year's meeting book, please? The town warrant,
What was it,
The
we're
book.
transferring 600 and,
your town report from last year.
We're gonna be transferring $633,450
I'm gonna tell you exactly, because we did it
$475
last year.
right,
to pay for.
so the
want
remainder
all
is
the
being, so the
pages?
remainder is being raised.
Raised.
Oh, sorry, yeah, and that's what I was getting
You want
at.
this?
So, and then
Here
we're
you go.
raising 8 million, And
There
so
you
like,
go.
the
Right.
question is, are we going to word this so all of these items that we just voted on are coming directly out of just the fund balance? And
No.
everything else is considered raised, or are we saying more or less we're just eating away at the 8.5 million that we need with 600,000?
There'll be an article that,
Okay.
So the way, so I'm just gonna read two examples so that we're all clear about the way that it is. So I'm gonna use, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the fire and rescue department budget. It's gonna go through that way for all of the articles that go that way,
yeah.
right? Then, to see what sum the town will vote to transfer from undesignated, but we're not gonna call it that, the general fund balance to be used towards the 2023 budget appropriation,
that
thereby
makes sense to
decreasing the
me, yeah.
amount to be raised from property
Yeah,
taxes.
so all of our questions will say raise and appropriate, but then at the end we'll say to see how much the town wants
Exactly what
to
it says, yeah.
transfer, and
Yeah.
we're saying to see if the town wants to transfer 633,475.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at earlier, like, sometimes it's easier to do even the discussion that we're having when the articles are all written, so you can see, because the budget committee and what's it called, that way you can see who's raising, who's allocating
Yeah.
from the general fund, et
What's-
cetera, and what you wanna do.
What I think is an important thing for us to talk about when we get there, though, is that number, 633,000, we came up with it because that is capturing all of these capital improvement funds that we're coming up with. So like, while that doesn't cover everything, and it's equally spread amongst all the expenses, we can say that our desire was for that to be representative of these changes that we made. Because it's like you were saying, like, if we didn't have this fund balance, we might not be making those sorts of investments or those sorts of expenditures. We might not be saying, let's put 50,000 away for Eureka.
I think the intent is to purchase capital products and so forth, using 600 and something thousand. By doing that, we are
Or
trying,
transfer.
or transferring, but really the objective here, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're gonna maintain basically, as far as the municipal, or excuse me, as far as the town budget, basically a stagnant budget, even though we're buying a lot of capital projects and so forth, because we're just gonna use the money at hand. But we're still gonna raise basically the same amount of taxes that we raised last year, we're just not gonna raise more. And this other expenses that we're adding are getting offset by our capital.
Yeah,
that
and
we
that's what
already
I'm
have.
getting at, is I think that we deserve, and Jerry here especially, a little bit of a pat on the back, because once you look at what we're coming up with a budget here, like you said, taking out the capital investments, the saving for the future, it's pretty dang close to same services as last year for about the same price. Now, the tax might change, the school budget might change, but it did a pretty good job of keeping things pretty.
You're getting the
level.
same services, but you're not paying the same price, you're offsetting the price with funds that we have already collected.
Right,
But the budget itself is actually a higher budget.
But what I'm getting at is, the budget is higher because we're investing, you know,
It's not all
However,
because of capital, we have
it's-
higher expenses due to like more municipal staff, et cetera, and things of that
Fuel
nature. It's not all because
charges
of capital.
and-
but if we're transferring 633,000, and then our capital expenses are 616,000, that's investment in the future, that's not even an expense, that's just a transfer. That means we're only spending, only $30,000 of that transfer is going towards an increase in expenses. So it's a pretty,
I don't
Dadgum
have a problem with it, I just
square.
wouldn't word it, the budget committee tried to word it that way, I would not
well,
word
the
it.
budget committee was saying we increase
Yeah.
spending 10%, which is,
Yeah, I just, when you're up there, just try to be careful with exactly what the words you use, because people will use it against you.
no, I understand that, and that's why I'm saying let's.
Because they'll
talk
come
about
back
it
and like,
here.
hey, this particular line item is up, let's say Public Works, or the fire department is up substantially. They're
Yeah.
gonna say, hey, how are you saying
Well,
that this is the
this
same?
This year's confusing anyways, because of
Right.
the new system and how we're
But we're
categorizing.
trying to mitigate a tax raise by using capital that we already
Mhm.
have. Our budget is increasing, but it's not being pushed forward in the form of a raise of taxes because we're offsetting it with capital that we've already had,
Yeah,
if that
I
makes
don't,
sense.
yeah, that makes sense.
Did I
and
say
don't-
that right, Jerry?
yeah.
That makes sense, and I don't wanna sound like I'm trying to argue here,
No.
that's not what I'm getting
No,
at.
I
But
get
what
what
I'm
you're saying.
saying is, if we're transferring $633,475 out of the fund balance, and then we look and we have capital, we're transferring $616,000 for capital
John.
improvement down in the
Can I see your
future.
report again, please? Your
Excuse me?
report.
Yep.
We're pretty much, almost all of that fund balance is all of the capital
Excuse me?
expenses are being covered by that fund balance. So I think what it's just showing is that we kept other things, give or take, pretty level. And I think that just goes to show that it's good budgeting, that's what I'm getting at here.
I think you did great.
I think the budgeting's great,
You know,
but you just wanna, I mean, I'll show you after.
Yeah.
What I'm
I
So-
mean, I understand what you're saying, I think.
We're going to, so this goes to, I'm just looking at, I was just adjusting the numbers, so you've got the numbers adjusted over there for us to vote on for each of the items, for us to move forward.
Oh, I thought we already voted on
Yeah, I
it.
thought,
Or
are you
what-
gonna, so do you
Do
wanna
we
go
need to
down?
go, do we need to go back through and vote again on the budget items that change? We went through the individual items, do you need us to vote on the total number at the bottom of each section?
We did that, by article, right?
I think so.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did.
But
We
we
did.
didn't, okay, we didn't totalize it though, but, okay.
So I thought we,
It all works out.
I thought we already voted on that $633,475 being added to the,
We did.
Okay,
Being changed.
all right, nope,
So, we started, is it okay to go down to the next section? Community services and donations? I'm on the supplemental
Oh,
budget. Okay,
we, sir,
this page here.
we didn't change anything there.
No, but
yeah.
we didn't, talk about how this is gonna look on the warrant, and Jerry's gonna do articles.
Oh, you're saying the warrant language, not the amount, no.
Or I just wanna make sure that we're in agreement with the way, we talked about how it gets broken down, right? So that if people want to have a conversation about going up or down on a specific thing. So the article's not gonna have just one number where it says raise and appropriate for community services and donations, the 16-1. Those things would be itemized like this in their own
In
category.
tabular format.
Right.
So I.
Like this, I guess.
So
is the
you'd
better
still be
example.
asking for the 16-1.
Right, but
You'd
it's-
have a list in there.
it's broken
Yeah,
down.
it's gotta be
Yeah.
listed.
Yeah, I think that's
Yep,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what
then,
we were doing, yeah.
and then the general assistance is its own, to see what some of the town will vote to raise
Yep.
and appropriate for general assistance, and that's the
Yep.
16.
okay,
Which brings us in the book to the 16-7, which is the 600 plus the
Yeah,
16.
so you said 16, it's 6 on the general assistance is its own.
600.
Yeah, so 16-1 for community services and donations is one warrant, but it has each one of these lines listed.
Correct.
And then the general assistance is
Yep.
separate for
Yep.
600.
Everybody good?
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
good
the
with
Do you
general
need a vote
assistance is
from
one
us
that
on
we don't
that?
have a
Are we
choice
good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
And we voted on ARPA, we already did that, so we're good with that. And you're gonna
Yep.
break out ARPA the same way that you're gonna do the,
Mhm.
okay?
those are separate
So
articles, yeah.
we're all good? We're all good?
I'm good.
I think we're done with this part.
Good.
Yeah?
Yep,
Okay.
And again, when you get them all, you know, just for clarification, when Jerry produces all these in the numbers, you still have the right to change it there. You just
Right.
have to change it before it goes to print. You
Yeah.
can't change it after, but next week, you
Right,
get
change
another
it on the
crack at
floor.
this if you want to.
Actually, what goes in the annual report is a draft.
Yeah, it's a
You can
draft.
change them.
You can change it up to 7 days, correct?
Yeah.
With the insert, I forgot, yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
thank you, Jess.
But the point I was trying to make is, you get another crack.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah,
Because sometimes it
thank you,
gets confusing in this
And
format.
some other things, new information comes in.
Always.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's all.
Wouldn't want it to be
We just gotta
dull and
stop
boring.
answering phones and emails 10
So
days.
voting on
Alright.
2024 budget articles on the agenda, what you needed from us, we're done with that line.
I think
Voting
we're-
on
I think we're good
2024
with that,
budget
yeah.
articles.
Yes, I
Okay.
have everything I need to get the warrant going
Okay.
for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. All right, drafting the Union Church articles, we talked about that already,
You did,
basically.
yeah,
So
and-
I think we just gotta go,
I gotta see the lawyer.
gotta see
I
the
gotta
lawyer,
talk to the
yeah, and then
lawyer.
let us know what we
And I'll
need.
have something for you the next meeting.
That's
Propose
perfect,
four-
okay.
4 articles.
Yeah, all right, that's good. All right, new business, discussion on reevaluation bid
And
results.
we sort of already talked about that.
We already
Yeah.
talked about
Two,
that.
So one was 220, one was
Right.
90. Donna's evaluating it. We'll plan on inviting the companies to come in
Mhm.
to discuss their process. and
Yep,
The expectations of that, and hopefully hopefully sooner than later, so we can get them on the hook. I know
Right.
it's gotta pass town meeting, but,
Yep. In the meantime, we have the budget set aside
Right,
for
you're
whichever way
budgeting
we
for
go for, and
Perfect.
we're good. Yep.
Was the bid sent out?
yes.
Not sent to the board. I didn't see, I didn't check the
No,
email before. I came
Donna's
in.
checking them.
No.
Donna's gonna read them
Yep.
over.
Yeah. She has all 5 copies. You will all get a copy.
No,
Once
no, that's
she-
fine. No, what, you mentioned maybe them coming here, but it'd probably be more advantageous for you and Donna to meet with them via Zoom. Some of these people from like Massachusetts
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, KRT's from Mass.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
one is here in Maine.
And maybe make a presentation to the board.
Right.
Because the board has some specific questions.
Right. Yeah.
So the idea would get their proposals out to us to review before they come in, so in case we
Yeah,
have
and that way if
questions.
like
Yeah.
Joe had a question in regards to something, he could
Yeah.
forward it on to him and Donna and they
Right,
could
ahead of
pose that
time.
question.
Yep.
I don't
Absolutely.
think we're gonna get him to come to us there.
Oh, I think they will. They will. This is a big
can-
deal.
we can
They'll-
try.
If they want to do the job, they'll come.
Yeah.
They don't wanna come to our
But
meeting,
Donna's
they're
the one
gonna have to
that's
come to
recommending.
town at some point.
Yeah.
My question was, does their, I know Donna's looking at the bids, but has she mentioned anything about like their price is only good for 30 days or something
No.
like that? Or do
No,
they
she hasn't.
understand, I'm sure they understand the process, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, all right. All right, next item on the agenda, presentation of draft select board policies and procedures. I emailed that out, late breaking, so that's not out in the public ether yet. So I did, I did finish the draft of that, everybody has a red line of that. I guess the real question is when do we talked about having a workshop meeting to discuss the contents of it, because I think it's gonna take us a while to go through that. I mean, I think we should take it paragraph by paragraph. I don't think we need to be in, I'll say, this setting to do that. It's probably best to just do it. I don't know what everybody's schedule, I know Josh isn't here, but do we have any ideas on what folks would like to do, when? You know, how long you might need to review what I put out.
Can you tell us what is coming up for the 27th? Do we have like stuff scheduled for that meeting?
Well, the warrant, to
Yeah.
go over the warrant, that's gonna take probably a little bit of time.
Yeah, I
don't
would say a
know
little bit. That was probably gonna-
That's an important document.
Yeah.
And we're getting to the end of February. Jess, when are we going to print?
Well, March 1st.
So
We want a deadline February 15th.
That's coming up quick.
it is, so we gotta make sure.
So, I mean, that takes precedence, so I just, that's why I say is a,
Well, my 3 cents, I think you should probably look it over and, you know, we can have a discussion on it, but you should probably make a decision and deliberate on it after the new board takes in April.
that's kind of where I was at too, is look at it and then deliberate later. And we have,
So,
Because the real focus should just be on town meeting for the next month.
right,
to get ready for
yeah.
that.
I'm worried that, yeah, we might have to meet again.
27th is our regular scheduled meeting. We need to do the warrant because the warrant needs to be done by the 1st.
Yeah, which is like, needs to be done on the 27th then.
And then right, and then the 12th and the 26th are our
Again.
next scheduled.
Yeah,
I'm going to put out a compromise about this, because I'm gonna be completely honest when I say that I'm super frustrated about the fact that I brought this up in July,
Mhm.
and it's now February, and now we're gonna kick the can down the road again. And so the compromise that I'm willing to make and not put up a big stink about it is that we move our March meetings to the 5th and the 19th so that Joe can attend them. And if we can do that, I'm willing to kick the can until after town meeting.
One thing about moving meetings is it's fine for the 4 of us, but also we don't take into account like staff. These meetings are planned ahead of time. We very rarely, any organization moves meetings because of one individual. And it's not a habit that you guys should probably get into, but you can do whatever you want. But the meetings are set forth like years in advance essentially.
So if that's
And
the way
it's-
that everybody feels, I wanna schedule an extra meeting, and I would make a motion to do that, to deal with this ahead of time.
that's fine. That's why I'm trying to, that's why I
Yeah.
asked for a date. I mean.
What do we think about doing, extra meeting on the 5th, just for the,
We could do a workshop on the 5th, that's fine, yeah. I mean, I'm available, I mean, so, I mean, I don't mind scheduling it for that, and if, you know, I don't know everybody's, we don't have Josh here, but,
I think it's prudent to do this. The original schedule was for us to do this in January.
in January, yeah.
And so,
We
I
knew,
think
we knew budget was gonna come along too,
right, that's
so-
why we had said we
Yeah.
were gonna do the
Well, we
workshop.
actually talked about it in November, doing it in November,
Mhm.
and
Then
then
the-
it didn't happen, and then it got moved to January,
The-
and now we're trying to move it again.
So,
Then the process was submitting comments by December 26th and then meeting in January, which didn't happen. So I'm advocating for, if we need to add a meeting just for this, that we could, I'd advocate for that.
okay,
Yeah,
5th,
whatever, I mean.
5th is
maybe-
fine, I mean, I'm free on Tuesday.
I would do it as a workshop, I wouldn't do it as an official meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
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 I mean, so I
Yeah.
move that we have a March 5th workshop to
Yep.
address budget select board meeting bylaw procedures
okay,
at
Second.
6:30 at the fire station,
Second.
okay,
What day is that?
Tuesday the 5th.
Tuesday the 5th, yeah. Just regular 6:30 meeting,
Mhm.
select board,
Do workshops need to be publicly recorded, or,
not recorded, but,
Okay.
just posted, and,
well, Jerry was nodding yes.
Well, you can record them,
I-
They said when they
they're
were here
open,
that we
people,
should.
people can
They tried, remember when we were
attend,
trying to record it?
it's an open meeting, whether
Yeah.
you wanna record it or not, that's
think-
up to you
yeah.
folks. I mean,
When Christina and Tony were here, and that workshop, we tried to record it, right? And then it ended up just being the audio from it, and we did that because they recommended that our
Yeah.
workshops are also. I
three
think it's
or
important.
more of you in a room is an open meeting.
Right.
yeah. Okay,
Okay,
yeah, I'm good with that.
we're gonna take a vote?
We can if you want.
Well, it's a motion,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we have, go ahead.
To have a meeting?
to add
Yeah,
a
I mean,
meeting.
I don't think you need a motion to have a meeting, I can,
Did
I-
motion and second.
yeah, we just, yeah.
Well, if we have a motion, we have to vote. 'Cause the motion was to add a meeting on the 5th at 6:30, or add a workshop on the 5th
Yeah, I
at
think it's
6:30 for this.
Yeah, that's fine, we can vote on it if you like. All right, all in favor? Okay, meeting on the 5th.
Thank you.
I don't believe you need to do that, it's just, I think, just as long as you have 3 of the 5 members who actually want to do that, you can just call a meeting, you don't need to really
That's fine.
have a vote,
It's just-
but whatever. Where I was reading somewhere. Or the chair can just call a meeting on the 5th, and everybody has to show up. That's the other thing you can do. Amazing what you find out, reading the rules. Okay, where are we? Managers report. Jerry, you have anything for us this evening?
I don't have a lot, but I did send you all an email today, a memo from the attorney regarding the Union Church. I don't know if you've put an
Yeah.
eyeball on that yet
I
or
did
not.
not.
Did you read
I
it?
did,
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm already working on it.
Okay, so, I just want you to be aware of that. It just basically, they tried to do a deed search and there's no record of the property ever being transferred over to the town. So you can still do the quitclaim deed, it's all of that, but I just want you to be aware of that. So if it comes up in discussion,
Yeah.
so, that's really the
I
only.
doubt they're gonna buy title insurance, I don't think anybody's gonna challenge it.
No, everything can still go, I just wanted you to all. to
Who
all
would have been
realize.
transferred,
Hmm?
who would have been transferred from? It was a church originally, or?
The
There's no
record shows that it was transferred on August 22nd of 1922.
Okay,
And it was a Baptist church originally,
So it was from
and
a
there were
church
4
to the
other
town.
denominations.
Okay.
It was
Huh.
abandoned before the town was there is record of it being transferred in like the newspaper, but the deed, I
There's no
don't
deed.
believe
deed,
was
no
recorded.
deed, no, I get,
Right.
no, interesting, okay,
So-
good, I learn something new every
so
day.
it sounds like,
That's great.
What's that?
It's a defined property as far as boundaries and so forth.
Yes.
Interesting,
It's just that because churches aren't taxed.
Right.
And then the town acquired the property, and the town obviously doesn't pay tax.
right,
There's a blurry
There's no,
recorded history.
no reason to have a piece of paper.
Right,
The Methodist church was a little funky too, if my memory serves.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was- I mean, they are,
That's
because
funny.
it is a church and it's going to the town, et cetera, there's always some, nothing Jack probably can't handle.
Yeah, okay.
It says, yeah, it says here, quit claim deed would transfer any ownership,
Right.
Yeah.
whether you know exactly where that came from or not, but, I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's gonna
there's also a
raise up and be
process.
like, I was there in 22 and this is not right. If
Right.
there is, they can
There
have it.
There is a process that you can do where you make public notice that gives
It's
anybody
102 years
that
ago, I think
believes
they
they
say.
might have any kind of right, that they have a certain amount of time to step forward on public notice that this is gonna take place. And if nobody steps forward in that amount of time, then they're basically relinquishing any claim to a right that they would have, and then it can be transferred free and clear. That process does exist.
Okay.
So someone
Alright.
could step forward and say, I have the deed, my grandfather gave it to me.
The
All
only-
right,
what you're saying.
yes, Jerry,
Yes.
let's keep going.
The only other thing I have is, so Public Works was gonna post the roads on the 20th,
Okay,
but Auburn called and a few other towns called them up and said they're posting now.
Okay.
So you're
Posting early.
Posting it early, so
Alright.
just so
They
folks
ripped
know.
my sign down, man.
I think there's one on Cedar Pond, isn't there? I went by it today, so.
somebody hasn't shot it up yet?
So roads are posted until probably further notice. I don't know how long. I
Alright.
can't imagine there's much frost in the, under the roads
Probably
now
not,
anyway,
no.
so.
No.
So there's that. That's, nothing else really has gone on. We've
Yeah.
had people out sick, so we've been hustling right along with
Yeah.
the
Seems to be
I-
par for the course.
folks.
I
Yeah,
can-
And it's a pretty good sickness that
As
people are
everybody's been getting
getting.
pretty sick, yeah, I don't know, it's, yeah.
Um,
I will say that I know that the roads aren't bad, cause my Jeep is fine driving around, usually I'm bouncing off the ceiling of that thing this time of year.
Other than that, not much from, since last week, so we'll just keep plugging on. Jess, do you have anything?
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
She's shaking her head no.
No, okay.
Actually, can I just add, so, coming up for the primary,
Yeah,
Republican ballot, there's a Democrat ballot. If you're a Republican, you get the Republican, you're a Democrat, you get the Democrat. Undesignated, unenrolled, can choose which ballot they want, and they don't have to register with that party. This is new, for the state of Maine, it's called a semi-open primary. Libertarian, no labels, Green Party cannot vote, so if you're registered as that, you don't get a ballot.
when do you have to come in to unenroll yourself?
February 16th officially, but we're closed, so February 15th, which is Thursday.
You'd have to
Yeah,
unenroll
Thursday
them?
to change
Oh, okay.
your status.
So there's no more same day enrolling?
That's registered.
Sorry,
Registered to vote, if you're not registered to
Just
vote
a
Durham,
vote
you
for
can register
primary.
on.
yeah.
Yeah, but you can't change your party day
Mhm.
of.
Jess,
you got-
does the independence fall into that same
Green
category?
independent,
Yeah, or just, yeah,
Which is
that's a party.
just straight up
That's
independent?
not the same as.
If you're not
unenrolled.
registered, I think you're just de
You're just
facto
automatically
considered
de facto
independent.
independent? I didn't know that. I didn't know if you had to register as an independent.
I just wanna clarify.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
think you're automatically
So by
considered independent.
Thursday, if you're, wanna be
just
unenrolled
weird
to be able to
that Green
choose
Independent calls itself
for
that.
the primary,
I don't remember enrolling in
you need to
It's
get
been a
down to the
while.
town hall to
It has
unenroll.
to be in person.
In
You have to
person,
come in and-
bring your ID.
We're in the close, it's called the close period right
Yep.
now. You can't send me one by mail.
Okay,
Maybe
you.
they could make one of the little graphics that they do to put that on the Facebook page or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, Kim is gonna put something up, yeah.
all right. Thank you.
Something over there.
All right, anything else,
Other than
Jerry?
that, I should be moving over to the, what was the select board room within 2 weeks, I think.
Okay,
And are you still trying to get like surplus dividers or something
I
like
was,
that?
I may still, or not do anything.
Yeah.
We'll see.
You mean like those taller
Yeah,
ones?
yeah,
Might
Like
have a place
cubicle
in here, so-
dividers?
yeah. I
Probably
went to
give 'em to you.
surplus. They said they get them now and then, but,
There's a company in Portland called INR, and that's like what they do.
right,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Bill and I renting Fort Andros. They have tenants move out, they leave millions of them behind, and they're all up in storage. They probably just give them a couple.
Yeah,
I can ask them, I'll ask them.
all right.
You just grab one on your way out.
They lock them. They lock them, but they do have a lock.
Okay. All right, next item, unless you have anything else,
I
Jerry?
don't
Okay.
have anything
All right.
else to really report now.
Board member reports, anything to report out?
I have a
on?
question. I think,
Yeah.
is this inappropriate? Would this be a time to ask it?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So when we make a change, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following the rules, right? And I know we're not supposed to direct town staff. And so when that email came out with our documents, and there was a change that needed to be made to the minutes, and I sent that email and addressed Kimberly because I knew she was the one who was gonna make the change. But that was me telling a town employee, well, asking a town employee to do something. And I think that's,
I think that's fine.
I just don't know
Yeah.
if that's okay, because I
'Cause you're supposed
didn't
to
ask
review 'em.
Jerry
Yeah,
to do
I mean,
it.
if
Yeah.
you find a mistake, I mean, yeah,
Well, I think
respond.
the onus
Do
of
you
that
see
is
what I'm
a
saying?
question like, please review these, and you're
Right.
saying, oh, I noticed this, and then,
Because they're your
Jeez,
minutes.
Right.
Okay,
You're just
Yeah.
saying, hey, I don't agree with these minutes. That's all you said, really, in my opinion.
yeah, it's not like
Right.
you're saying like, hey,
Yeah.
go
I don't
write
think
a
it's a big
novel.
deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Okay.
important to ask,
Yeah,
Totally.
no,
like
that's,
this here.
Yeah.
okay.
I think you're fine.
if
And
you
do you
asked,
agree
if
with
you,
that?
if
Yeah,
you,
that's fine.
if you-
Okay,
if you
that-
asked her to reformat it, because you didn't like the format of something and wanted to change it around, that would be different.
Right.
I mean, it's
And
just-
you're comfortable with that exchange?
Yeah,
And not
absolutely.
saying to,
'Cause
saying
the-
to you, Jerry, can you please tell Kimberly to X, Y, Z?
Right, no, because
Okay.
these are, it's like, it is the board minutes, so
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know, if there's something that's incorrect,
Yeah.
that's fine, just send a quick email.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I'll report out next time on our meeting. I just didn't write anything up ahead of time for, Jerry and I attended a meeting with various members of the select boards and committees in the surrounding area. We attended last week, but with everything going on, that didn't get written up. Okay, consent agenda. A motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved?
Second?
Okay, move second, all in favor? Okay. I've got, I believe, somebody gave me a folder here of stuff we can sign. Upcoming meetings, we got select board meeting on 2/27 and 3/12 here at the fire station. Planning board on 2/15/24 here at the fire station. Any reason for an executive session this
Well,
evening?
we've also got the 3-5 workshop. as
What's
well.
that?
We've also got the 3-5
They had a
workshop
3/5
as well.
workshop,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second?
all right. All in favor, all right. Motion carries, thank you, everybody, wonderful evening. And we got something to sign here.
Yeah, that was a lot to get through, good job.